enviable task of coming last, so I will try and bring it all together. I'll be talking about the role of parental support in achieving versatility. I have two admissions to make before I start. One is I seem to have misjudged the crowd. When I picked this theme, I think, aiming towards parents, so a lot of what I say is going to fall upon people who support me in my quest for parental support. The second admission that I have is, even though I jumped at the opportunity to do this TEDx talk, I still am not sure as to what qualifies me to make it. I'm unsure if I'm versatile. If you're being generous, you can call me a work in progress, a versatile work in progress. If you're being mean, you can call me someone in his mid-20s who's very confused and has no idea where he's going. So I'll try to work in this confusion as I go along. And hopefully, if you agree with me, then this will be an open letter to our parents in general. Right, first of all, I think that I should present my view of versatility, since it will relate to a lot of what I plan to say. I define versatility as acquiring skill sets in different areas that can be applied to different problems and different solutions. Now, the key to that term, as I see it, is skill sets, because that's what is the building block of a versatile person through versatility. And these skill sets, as previous speakers have pointed out, can be in one area, they can be in a general area, or they can be spread out across multiple fields of study or academia. I think it's important to distinguish skills from hobbies, though, because sometimes people use them interchangeably. I think, especially when defining versatility, skill sets and hobbies should be kept separate. Even though hobbies are a very good first point to maybe acquire skill sets leading to versatility, I think that sometimes they can be a bit compartmentalized and underdeveloped. This is generally, as humans, we're lazy, we have a lot of priorities, life is confusing. Sometimes when we see something purely as leisure activity, we don't try and develop it as much as if we'd see it as a professional or a scholar opportunity. If you have hobbies, that makes you a happy person, it makes you an interesting person. People are more likely to date you if you have interesting hobbies. However, it doesn't make you a versatile person, not necessarily. I'll come back to why I made that distinction later on. Why versatility? Even though by being here we all seem to agree that versatility is an important and good thing, I think if, in the context of this open letter, I should talk a little bit about why I feel versatility is important. First of all, it goes without saying that a versatile person with multiple skill sets that they can apply to different areas is a more qualified person, thus quite practically preferred for different job areas. And I'm in my mid-20s, I've recently graduated. What I've realized, and what a lot of my fellow graduates have realized in this job market, is that it's changed quite drastically from what it previously was. Even though traditional areas do exist, they're changing and adapting, and the changing and adapting job market, the economic downturn, new technologies, is creating new hybrid professions that require you to be have multiple direction and multiple skill sets. Especially from what I know from myself and my classmates and other people I've met in this search for profession and meaning, it seems that the attitude of doing one or two things, but doing it well, guaranteeing you a stable and successful life, is predominantly over. Versatility is becoming more than a nice-to-have quality, it's becoming a must-have quality, especially for people trying to go into the job market at the moment. That leads me to interacting with society. Now, society in general, you'll find, loves versatile people. They love if you have multiple skills spread out across an area or are diversified within your own area, you are a person of example. That will be the uncle or the relative that the family shows as an example to the children. It will be the person that you're supposed to aspire to. However, I find that even though we appreciate the final product, we're not always as understanding of the different paths that one can take to get to that final product. Obviously, I'm basing a lot of my opinions on Turkey. This is where I grew up. I spent my formative years here. Now it's where I've come back after my university education in my mid-20s to find meaning, work, if the two are interconnected or if they're not. I'll let you decide. I'm also talking about predominantly about versatility and different skill sets across a wide area rather than centralized in a central area, because that was my particular experience. At the moment, this is a good point to say, talk a little bit about myself to see if I do qualify or not for versatility. By undergraduate education, and now by increased training and education in Turkey, I'm a legal trainee, or if you're being pretentious, a legal scholar. However, I've also worked as a journalist and an editor, and I've got a master's degree in digital culture and technology. Now, I say however there, and I realize that I always use however when I'm describing these other points. And in fact, when I sat down to write this presentation, the first thing that came to my mind as a linking word wasn't and, it was however. Which got me thinking, why do I present these ancillary subjects that maybe aren't really connected to what my apparent main area of focus is as however? And I find that it's because I've had a lot of people question me. When I graduated from law school and when I said to people I was working as a journalist, I got a lot of questions of why, but you went to law school, you studied law. So whenever we have our different skill sets that maybe don't link readily, a lot of people approach us with confusion. So we have to explain ourselves. And this isn't only the case for me. I know a lot of people who I graduated with or other friends who went into different areas from what they studied, which is perfectly valid. It's a good way forward. But they have a lot of people who don't understand their choices. They ask, why? But you studied X. Why? But you were doing Y. So why have you moved into something else? They always explain, they always expect an explanation. Which got me thinking that as society, we like versatile people, but we like if we can group their different skill sets into a general area. That makes us feel comfortable, it makes us feel safe, because we can categorize them easier. So if you've got different skill sets, but they fit within the same circle, then we're happy with that. We like diversification within an area. However, it's when we have skills that maybe aren't readily associated with the main area, it's where we get confused. That's when society in general asks us, well, why did you do that? It's interesting, but why go down that route? And these deviations, they're met with responses of anything ranging from dismissal, people saying that it's not worthwhile that we've gone and done that thing, or confusion, or general curiosity. However, I'm not meaning to say that society in general is dismissive or unsupportive of versatility or developing different skill sets outside of your common area. It's just that sometimes they might not outrightly support it, or the support may not be readily available. And that's the important thing. For a lot of people our age, sort of ranging from end of high school to university to just after university, that support is what spurs us on, what gives us the confidence to maybe diversify our skill set. So if we don't find it readily from those around us, that's what can put our path and our development at risk. It almost puts us in an unfortunate cycle. We want to be a more productive member of society, so we want to diversify, yet society is telling us not to go that way and go this way, so we get confused. Now, the particular, and I don't know if anyone would agree with this, but the particular focal point of society, whether they support you or the lack of support for society, are your parents. They can amplify what society feels, either whether it be support or questioning, or they can offset it. They can be the counterbalance to it. And especially considering the age range, the necessities of the age range that I was talking about, sort of end of high school to university, parental support and going to your parent is particularly important. They're the first people we turn to if we do have an area that, if we have questions or if we have goals or desires to lead to maybe outside of the traditional norms or deviate from something that we were already doing or already studying, parents are generally who we'll go to speak to first. However, in Turkey, I find that initial questioning gets us to this sentence, which the Turkish one, which we might, people in this room might have heard a lot. It's, we're not telling you to not do it, we're just saying you should do it as a hobby. From the laughter around the room, it might have been directed to you, to your friends, to people close to you. It's got its own Facebook entry in forums such as Ekşi Sözlük. It's got its own entry in its name. It is a popular and heard concept. It does exist in our society, especially, unfortunately, targeted towards more creative areas. However, this is wrong, because it's dismissive, it's counterproductive, and it can be detrimental. Just obviously, the gist of it coming from parents is they want their children to stay in an area that they see safe, that they see stable, that they may see lucrative. However, when it's phrased like this, and when this is the first response you get, it can be quite disheartening. I mean, that might be, the child might be coming with a legitimate concern, or a legitimately new area that they can develop, that may seem unlinked, or may be unlinked, but would be good and beneficial for them. So dismissing it by default is quite wrong. It's also counterproductive, because from friends that I know, and I'm guessing you know as well, when they've heard this, they haven't stopped doing it. In fact, they've done it in secret, or they've focused on it at behest of other things that they are supposed to be doing. So, in fact, it becomes detrimental, because then it has them scattered, or it has them pursuing skill sets that they feel they are unfairly or unrightly doing so, when they should actually be doing it with support. However, it doesn't, in fact, shouldn't have to be like this. Parents are and can be instrumental in providing comfort and support, and a firm yet understanding sounding board. However, I don't mean that parental support, especially in terms of that sentence there, it doesn't have to be unquestioning, and it doesn't have to be automatic. That's not what parental support is. I'm not saying that anything we go to our parents should be automatically granted by them. We are, and I'm still very confused about life, and very confused about which direction to go. However, it's just good to have an initial sounding point. And I think, even though this parental support can come in many different ways, the main way that it should come in is informed engagement. This is where I'd like to give an example from myself. I went to law school, which is quite a restrictive track of education, and was unsure about my different skill sets. However, when I approached my parents, they both did their own independent research. I did my independent research. They obviously know me sometimes better than I knew myself at that age. So they were quite supportive when I came to them with certain options, about discussing those options, suggesting different tracks of study that would actually achieve what I was approaching them with. So they actually took time to research and read into it, so we were able to have an informed discussion in which they were able to support me. For other friends that I've had, for example, someone I used to live with, parental support in his example was just his parents showing understanding towards him when he was saying that he'd try something new, and it was also, in that case, financial support while he did something new. For other friends, it's just been parents willing to sit down and listen to them and talk about it. It can come in many different forms. However, I have to outline two things, because when I've sometimes spoken to parents, they think parental support, especially in search for different things, whether it be skill sets, different interests, different pursuits, has to mean, when I say parental support is important, then they say, well then, do we automatically have to say yes? No, you don't automatically have to say yes. You are their parents. That's why you are a sounding board rather than an approval board. And the second one, it doesn't always have to be financial. Even, as I said, just informed consent. Having read into and knowing your child and combining those two aspects, so you can actually give advice on what you think is best, but also taking in consideration what they want to do and combining it in a good and understanding route. Obviously, when we come to Turkey, there is certain complications. For example, our education system isn't at all conducive to such a track of pursuits and skill sets outside of a norm. Even starting from the middle of high school, we have to choose an educational track that then develops what we do at university, which then develops what jobs we go into. So we're on a very restricted track, more so than a lot of other countries. Also, we're still a country that has a proud tradition of family companies. The son inheriting the father's job or going straight into that is still quite a valid point. And we also, which is now with especially with the up-and-coming middle class, we also have certain concerns about not only inheriting the father's job. This is another real-life example. I recently, a friend who's a teacher, was emailed by parents, middle-class parents, saying that they were looking at preschools for their one-year-old son because they wanted their one-year-old son to go to Cambridge University to study medicine or engineering, a one-year-old son. So we still believe in a lot of predestined route and predestined path, and that is still something quite prevalent. The parent knows best, the parent can shape, or the child will take over what the parent is doing. However, what I'm talking about is a good, simple initial step. Obviously, these are deep-rooted problems that we can't change in a night. However, parental support, especially for the first boost of confidence that the child needs to maybe think about diversifying themselves or developing skill sets or becoming versatile, is the important aspect. I was going to go directly onto what I would advise parents to do, but since a lot of you are in the same, well, I'm assuming same position as me, I'd like to say some of the lessons that I've learned in the last few years. First of all, it is, I know, not always easy, but it's good to talk to your parents. But there's the other thing, what we always have to keep in mind is the generational gap. It's a lot easier for them to actually help you if they understand where you're coming from. So you have to be open and forthwith with them. If you have a plan of going into a different area or have a skill set that you're particularly interested in, but they don't know about it, then sometimes that means that they can't actually help you. I mean, for years, I kept certain of my areas of interest not secret from my parents, but I just didn't expand upon them much. So when time came to me to actually look at other things other than law, they weren't in a position to help me because they didn't actually know the other areas I was interested in because I'd never bothered to sit down and talk to them and enlighten them on this. And also another thing is, regardless of what society thinks, it's never too late to change track or to diversify your track. Always from the central interest that you know that you are good at or you know that you're interested in, then those should be the routes that you follow. And even if people ask you why you did that, why you left a certain point or why you left a certain route, that doesn't matter. As long as you can explain it to yourself, you don't need to justify it to other people. And the however should never be a part of your identity. The and should be a part. You do that and you do something else. So the final thing is the do's for the parents. So I'm guessing that goes mostly to the camera because the parents currently in this room do seem to be supportive of versatility. The thing that parents should do is engagement. As I said, honest and informed engagement in support. Understanding when your child does approach you with such concerns. Research independent from what your child is saying, both into the skills and talents that you know that your child may have. Wisdom. One of the reasons why we come to you is because for the longest time of our life, you were the part of us that knew best, of the unit that knew best. So still, we'd like to use your wisdom as you do have it. And finally, support. So, yes, a final word to any parents who hopefully do watch this is if your child does come to you with a request, such as the ones I was talking about, do not dismiss it automatically as a hobby. Embrace it, try and get to know it a little bit, and then decide with them if that's a right way to follow and support them, whatever their decision is. Thank you very much.